open your eyes and enter the world of science, curiosity, answers. Welcome to Why Is. Take a minute and go back to 1995, where the public internet was only 4 years old. The internet was encompassed with terrible search engines, which took at least 10 to 15 minutes to come up with some information, and the only speeds available were 15 kilobytes per second or 10 kilobytes per second. Think of life before history changed itself forever. Think of a life when there was no Google. Hard, isn't it? Have you ever wondered how many times you use Google to look into something? Moreover, it is also widely believed that if something is not on Google, it is possible that it doesn't even exist. From search engines to smartphones, it's hard to think about how big Google is and how it is advancing day by day. So, Google is much bigger than you think. Let's dive deeper and see what is the history behind it. By the end of the year 1995, two geniuses met to change the history of the internet for the first and the last time. A 22-year-old Larry Page and a 21-year-old Sergey Brin met for the first time at Stanford University. These masterminds behind Google became friends in no time and were ready to work on something that would change theirs and people's lives forever. Both founders of Google first collaborated and started working on the search engine Backrub. By that time, Backrub was considered as the most efficient of all the other search engines available because it used PageRank algorithm to determine the importance of individual pages on the World Wide Web. This formula and technique behind Backrub was the key that made it stand out of all different search engines. And by the end of 1997 in September, Backrub was officially changed to Google, which is inspired from the term Google, which means one with 100 zeros following it. And the rest, as they say, is history. In 1998, by the investment of Andy Bechtolsheim, Google Inc. was officially born. With this huge investment, these two Stanford boys made their way from dorms to a garage owned by Susan Wojcicki, who later was the 16th employee of Google and now the CEO of YouTube. By the end of 1998, Google got its first official office in Plano. Later on, they moved to Mountain View, California. In July 2001, Google launched its Google Images with more than 60 million searchable images. Just like in every brand's case, Google also faced some difficulties to make its success in the advancing days of technology. During an interview with the LinkedIn, the co-founder told that the CEO's office at the company was an 8x12 space that he used to share with the company's vice president. It was in the beginning that Google started from $1 million in 1997, and today it has the market value of $739 billion US, and its revenue amounted to $19.65 billion US in 2007, which is more than combined revenue of two famous companies, Facebook and Disney. Another interesting thing to know is that since the founders did not want to make Google a business, they tried to sell their system to Yahoo, which at that time was rejected by Yahoo. In the year 2004, Google launched its first email service, and later followed by these years, Google kept on expanding rapidly by adding more and more brilliant minds into the team. Google's spirit of doing things differently and uniquely made the move. One thing that makes Google stand out of the crowd is that it never loses its identity and its simple style. This company has always tried to bring innovation into the market, which keeps things fresh and consistently progressive. It has collected, digitalized, and arranged more and every sort of information than any other search engine could ever imagine. Other than bringing top-notch search engine into the market, the founders did not want to sit back. As Google promises to bring innovation, the great acquisitions made by Google can't be ignored. As Google allows its employees to take one day off only for brainstorming and thinking out of the box. Many great inventions have taken place. Google's soft-driving cars and augmented reality glasses are not only the great inventions by Google, but this company is highly obsessed with working on something that human minds can ever think of. For example, DeepMind, which is the holy grail of artificial intelligence. In 3 years, AdWords has turned into a computer-based pay-per-click promotion that boosted costs and increased advertising. Google did not focus solely on the sponsorship of any control word, but rather important advertising that allowed Google to have more images and more revenue. On the right, until now, AdWords receives the programmed product, which credits Google. AdWords was tracked by AdSense, which allowed any site to go into Google advertising and provided Google with a strong degree of advertising for computers. There's a 70% chance that you're reading or watching this video on an Android phone, which is one of the most important parts of Google's empire. To get into the hardware side of the tech world, Google got into Motorola Mobility for $12.5 billion and later on sold this mobility to Lenovo for $2.9 billion. By keeping this in mind, Google also acquired the greatest platform of videos, YouTube, for $1.65 billion in 2006. From software to hardware, Google also acquired Boston Dynamics in 2010 to work on robot technology. This means that now Google is also one of the most advanced robot producing companies. Another interesting project that Google is working on these days is Project Loon, which aims to provide internet services to the people who do not have access to the internet by leaving high-tech hot air balloons in the stratosphere, which will then create a 3G wireless network in poor and no internet areas. According to the BBC News, it has been reported that Google has started working with NASA to mark its place in quantum computing game. And it wouldn't be hard to say that Google is the only company that has been involved in the manufacturing of first commercial quantum computing machines. And it's hoped that these fastest computing chips would be able to solve many complex queries in the future. Google is increasing its advertising revenue and improving areas in governance that generate more than just advertising revenue. Another interesting factor about Google's progressive example of overcoming anxiety is the determination to move forward. Google sees promotion as a part of a strategic organization and gets its representatives involved in innovation. In this way, the web organization has begun to create workable clothing, universal work frames, hassle-free machines, and sustainable energy sources. Cash is never Google's biggest concern again, as speculation with capital beta is enough to do a little wrong. The organization's focus is on improving the culture first, getting second-hand customer information, and focusing on adaptation in a short time. With Google's ability to monetize AdWords, it is truly understandable to adapt to this product unless enough people need it. It's hard to come up with a tentative statement that how big Google is. Google's executives are driven by wanting to have startups. They want to have a portfolio of startups, says Mark Bergen of online technology publication Recode. What makes Google to work on these huge projects is the ability to take risks and making high investments, and not many of them also even work. In an interview, Mr. Bergen said that Google Glass was a fairly expensive investment. Says Mr. Bergen, they made some mistakes. What if Google shuts down? Imagine if the most famous search engine of the universe fades away without any announcement. It would. The world would freeze for a moment. From the device that controls the temperature of your homes to the ones in your hand, the name so famous that was once a search engine is now a verb. How would you spend a day without saying Google it? Think of it in a deeper way. Think of the institutions running, the businesses running, the backup in your Google Drives. Think of the hold Google has on your daily normal functioning. The trusted services provided by Google would disappear. Every organization would collapse. The results would be unimaginable. Conclusion. A 5-minute video cannot tell you how big is Google and what they are up to, but we can say that in the long run, it's really hard to challenge its dominance. Contrary to this, in an interview, when Brian was asked if he thinks that anything can beat Google, he said, "It's not that hard to build a search engine, and there are plenty of them out there. These things aren't that hard to do anymore. If there's a chink in the armor, it can be attacked." So over the next decade, we may see huge advancements in the technology, from advanced intelligent robotics to the cell phones we carry. All around, I would not be wrong to say that challenging Google would be hard or nearly impossible, because its services already account for 40% of the total internet traffic, and it's empowering that the two young men led to the growth of a company that has such large and growing embrace over every aspect of the technological universe. With no doubt, we can say that there is no company out there who has resources and infrastructure to do the research and develop such amazing technologies and produce products at such a reasonable price with loyalty towards their customers.